This is a video to accompany Excel Assignment 1 in Info 220. I just wanted to give you a few tips that might help you do better in this first assignment. So the first part of the assignment is a conditional format using the baseball data worksheet. So you can see there we have actual baseball data that I downloaded from a website. So you can see all the team names, and then you have which league they're in, and some basic pitching stats and batting stats. And we just want to apply some conditional formats to kind of jazz up the visuals of this data set a little bit. So the first thing is a data bar in the winning percent column. So we had an example that did a data bar. So you would select the winning percent, select your conditional format, and one of the options there is data bar. Similarly, you have a couple other conditional formats, one for the runs allowed per game. Now this one we didn't really do specifically in the example. We highlighted cells that had in red or green that had selected values using like equals 0 or between 1 and 9. So this is a little bit different. The criteria is above and below average. So for this you would select the data in the runs allowed column, and then in the conditional format, there's a different selection for above average and below average. So you would select the range, select above average, select what color you want, reselect or keep the data selected, go back to that same screen, and select below average for the other color. The last one is real easy. The conditional format for the icon set for the runs scored per game column. So that's going to be over here. Select the data and go into the conditional formatting, the icon sets, the directional arrows. It will automatically preset the in groups of a third each, the top third of each data point value in the column that you selected as green, red, and yellow respectively. So the conditional formatting part is quite easy. Pivot tables are a little bit more difficult. And the way I'm having you format these is a little bit different than we did in the assignment. So you're going to go to the data and insert a pivot table. And you can select the default range, and you can see you have all your headings. So you're simply going to, as it says in the instructions, the first pivot table is average runs scored by home runs. So we want to know whether teams that hit more home runs tend to score more runs. You would expect that they do, but so you need to select the proper sum value for the runs scored per game, make it an average, and then put the home runs in the row. So don't get the pitching stats mixed up with the batting stats. For the instructions here, you're going to be focusing on the batting stats, which are over here. You have average runs scored per game, home runs, not to be confused with home runs given up by the pitchers on the team. So you create that first chart, and you'll have to do some grouping, add some slicers, and then I'm asking you to do a little bit of modification to make it look nice, so that the slicer shows 3 columns and has a certain color scheme, and everything is aligned right. And then I'd ask you to add a second 3 additional pivot tables that show different relationships. So average runs scored by stolen bases, by batting average, and by on base plus slugging, OPS. And again with league and team slicers. When you get finished with the pivot charts, it should look something like this. This is different data. This is the pitching data rather than the batting data, and there's a little bit of freedom to have the alignment, but notice how he's got a color scheme for the first one, a different color scheme for the second one. He's got the teams slicers all viewed nicely. He's got a line chart that's aligned. He's got the data grouped as needed with everything formatted. He's got specialized headings to be descriptive, and the charts have a title. They don't have a legend that says just plain total. So he's done all the formatting that we talked about in the video tutorials from week 1. So this is what the final product should look like. The only difference is between this and the charts that we did in the video tutorials is that these are all on, so you're going to have 4 of these on one page. And you can either do that by copying and pasting, and then just pasting here and then moving things around. Or if you go back to the original data and you insert a pivot table, instead of inserting in a new worksheet, you would have to select the existing worksheet and the place in the worksheet that you would want to include the second, third, and fourth pivot tables and charts. Now, for the third part of the assignment, you have a different data set. So this is produce sales. So you've got an individual product and a category. They sound kind of similar, but the categories are just fruits and vegetables, whereas the product is individual. Specific fruits or vegetables, and you have a list of different sales, what country they occurred in, what date, and the amount. As it says in the instructions, we want to have total sales by country. So you have to select the individual countries and group them, and then do all the manual things that we did in the video where we were creating the degrees, like no high school, and so forth. In this case, you're only going to have 2 groups. The only tricky thing is the data won't be in consecutive rows, so you'll have to use the control button on your keyboard to select things that aren't right next to each other. So you hold down the control button on your keyboard to be able to select the United States and Canada in one group, and then the other groups as needed. Everything else should be kind of similar. I've got the first pivot chart includes the total sales, which is the sum. In the example video, we did average. In part 1, we want average instead of sum, but for this one, sum actually makes sense. We want to know how much each country sold and by region. And then for part 2, again, we're inserting that below, but we're doing a pie chart that uses text data. So the count of each product sold in the pivot table, and then slicers to show category and country. And in the pie chart, the word category is used in the pie chart. It happens to also be a field name, which is a little confusing, but there's a term in your pie charts where you select category and percent, but uncheck value. So you can go back and look at the pie charts that I recorded in the videos to see some examples. Okay, so I hope that's helpful. Feel free to contact me via email. It's probably best. If you have anything that you're confused on, send me an email with your question and attach your file so to give me a better chance to see what you have going wrong. I'm also free to meet with you on Google Hangouts. It's a little more difficult on Google Hangouts to be able to grab your file and look at it because it's more of a video, like a FaceTime type. But I'd be happy to meet with you on Google Hangouts, maybe explain a few things, and then maybe follow up with an email after that. So anyway, good luck on assignment 1, and hope everybody gets 100%.